me, Shell 360, and we're reviewing chapters 23 through 27 of this book, Shine, a Novel by Jessica Jung. 23 through 27 are the last chapters of this book. Then the book is done. And pacing is an issue. I'm just going to bring this up, Jessica, for you for future reference because you wrote the ending of this book as if you're trying to set us up for a sequel. So I just want to let you know pacing is an issue. I realize that you probably call yourself quite clever for setting up the final chapters the way you did. It's not. It's not. It's annoying more than anything. It's annoying that you wait until the last chapters of the book to get things swiftly moving. It's annoying that some things end in a completely fairy tale way, whereas other things do not. It's just, there's a lot of annoying shit that happens in these last few chapters. But at the very minimum, I can say a lot of stuff gets wrapped up. The last few chapters are much more exciting than the majority of the book is. And I don't know, I was just glad to see something happen, to be quite honest with you. Something happened. But there's some shit that happens at the end of this that feels completely implausible. Completely implausible. That I could not see happening in K-pop in 2008, nor K-pop in 2028. Some shit that just would never happen. Alright, so after Jason and Rachel have had this, heart-to-heart understanding meeting of the minds while they were in New York, Jason and Rachel fly back to Korea. And Mina went home before, obviously, because she had twisted her ankle. Rachel walks through the door at her home, and she has a snow globe for her mom and some other tchotchke for her sister. No, I don't even know what she got for her sister. She got a snow globe for her mom and a leather-bound journal for her dad while she was in New York. She walks through the front door to greet her family, and sitting in her family's living room, dining room, wherever, is her mom, her dad, her sister, and Mr. Cho, and Mina. And she describes very clearly that they could not have been at the house for very long because the tea still had steam coming from it, so it was still hot. And Mr. Cho is there to offer a job to to Rachel's dad, because Mina had told Rachel that her dad had graduated from law school. And so Mr. Cho's like, I could use another new consultant on my team, and with your daughter being a DB trainee and my daughter being a DB trainee, this would be perfect for us. So her dad's all flattered and like, oh my gosh, this is so great. Meanwhile, her mom is giving her dad the exact same side I would have, which is like, the fuck you mean you graduated from law school? When did you even fucking go to law school? But she's trying to hide it because she's got manners. We got company. So that happens, and of course Rachel is like, shit, my family's gonna be embroiled with these motherfuckers. I hate that. Also, Mina pulls some other trick on her. I can't remember what it is. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. If it mattered, I would have remembered it because I literally just finished reading these chapters. So if it stood out, I would have remembered it. Oh, I know what it was. She tells Rachel, oh, by the way, congratulations. And she's like, congratulations on what? And she's like, oh, you haven't heard the news yet? Tee-hee-hee. And so Rachel goes to check the news, hashtag Jason Lee. And it turns out Jason has gone solo. He is leaving the Next Boys, which is like, oh my gosh, Jason's going solo. This is incredible. This is amazing. I can't believe this actually happened. Oh my gosh. She looks at it as like an amazing positive thing for him. So positive, in fact, that she puts on her outdoor shoes and is racing to the DB building to talk to him. On the way to the DB building, she overhears some girl saying, oh, look, it's that hoe from the news. And she's like, what? What hoe from the news? Turns out a series of photos have been released of Rachel going on a date with Jason in Tokyo. Wow, that's amazing. But also there's a series of photos of Jason going on a date with Mina. Intrigue. What's going on? So she shows up at the DB building to confront Jason about just everything that's going on, how wild this whole situation is. And Jason is like, The fuck do you mean? What's going on? So, I'm going to read some. You're just going to have to bear with me. Some of these things have to be read. They can't be recapped by me. But I'm also summarizing 4 chapters, so we're just going to get this done. This is all in chapter 24. I'm going here. Page 309, for those of you reading along with me. Wordlessly, I hold my phone up. Pictures of him and Mina splashed across the screen. Jason takes it from my hands. As he reads, his face goes from confused to horrified. His eyes widening as understanding sinks in. He swallows hard. It's not what it looks like, Rachel. Please, let me explain. Go on, then. My voice sounds hoarse. Explain. He takes a deep breath, wiping his hands against his pants. About 6 months ago, I showed DB my original song, the one I played for you. I wanted to go solo, and I wanted that song to be my debut song as a solo artist. The words rush out before I can stop myself. But what about Next Boys and Minjin? Minjin understood. As for the rest of the group, what can I say? I told you about my mom, how much K-pop music meant to her, how much it means to me. I wanted my music to mean something again. I understand that part, but what I don't understand is what this has to do with me and Mina. Jason swallows hard. Well, the execs said yes, but there's a catch. They wanted to see if I could really succeed as a solo artist. His eyes flit to mine. They wanted me to record a new single with a trainee. Our song, I say, understanding slowly creeping in. Right. It was decided that it would be a test duet with Mina, but after the video of us singing went viral, I thought singing with both of you would create more buzz. My heart pinches at his words. This was your idea? I flash back to Mr. Han fighting for me in the boardroom when it seems like all hope was lost. Jason gives a small nod like he can't bear the thought of what he's done. I talked to Mr. Han after we sang together. Right. More arm candy for the great Jason Lee. Rachel, no! It wasn't like that. I loved singing with you. It was like we were meant to sing together, I finished flatly. Yeah, exactly, like it was meant to be. And the rest of it? DB was demanding I do whatever I could to generate buzz for the song, he says, speaking quickly now. You know how DB is all about publicity. They staged dates for me with both you and Mina and had the paparazzi follow us. But Rachel, please understand, he grabs my hand, locking eyes with mine. Everything with Mina was totally posed, just like it was supposed to be. But it was different with you. That day in Tokyo on the plane, I meant what I said, and I've meant it ever since. I love being around you. I love you. Don't! I shout. Don't say it. You can't say that to me right now. My mind's spinning. I don't know what to believe, what to feel. Did Mina know? He hesitates. Her dad told her the deal right away. That day on the river, she was just playing along for the cameras. We both were. Why didn't anyone tell me? The execs, they knew you had trouble in front of the camera. They didn't want you to ruin their plans. I can't believe you. Everything you said that day in the park about being here for me, about not wanting to be as bad as the execs, but you're worse than them. At least they never lie about how they are. You had me believing this was real. Rachel, it's not like that. Since that day in Tokyo, I've been playing the paparazzi to keep photos off the internet. I never wanted you to find out this way. I was planning to tell you everything soon, but clearly somebody had to leak it. It was DB. They leaked the photos. I stare at him. You thought you were holding off the paparazzi from posting, but it wasn't because of you. It was because they were waiting for a signal from DB to drop them at the perfect time. What are you talking about? Jason says. Think about it, Jason. Summer Heat has been one big publicity stunt to create buzz for your solo act. They set you up as a heartbroken guy caught between two girls, and that's when you sing your precious debut song. People who relate it to your life and eat it up. And of course they threw me and Mina into the love triangle. We're expendable trainees. If the public turns on us, it doesn't matter. But that doesn't make sense, he says, frowning. You've heard my song. The lyrics are all about being caught between identities, being caught between two worlds. It's not about a love triangle. Do you seriously think DB is going to let you sing about your freaking identity? No, they wouldn't do that to me. I'm telling you, they wouldn't. They called me as soon as I got into a car at the airport. They said they have big news that I should start practicing my solo debut because, Rachel, what am I going to do? Remember how I said Jason Lee was a fucking idiot? He's a fucking idiot. He is a fucking idiot. He's been an idiot this whole time. Goddamn. He's so damn dumb. So he films a date with Rachel. Doesn't tell her that they're filming a date. What if she had leaned in for the kiss during your date? Then what would you have done? So that's ding number 1. Ding number 2. You don't think that the paparazzi might be playing you because they don't take orders from stars, they take orders from companies? If K-pop stars could pay the paparazzi not to leak photos of them dating, do you know how many stories would never make it to the newspapers because the stars would pay out their ass to keep that news from happening? We'd have never found out about Jiho and Kang Daniel. We'd have never found out about Jonghyun. We'd have never found out about tons of these things if the paparazzi could be paid by actors and musicians. They don't care about those people. They care about the people who give them access to musicians and actors. Those are the companies. Those are the managers that work at the companies. And to keep those lifelines open, they wait until those companies allow them to leak these stories. Always has been, always will be. The few that have got caught up in it, I'm sure their companies have given them the heads up, because if you notice, right after these dispatch photos take place, all of a sudden here comes a company statement saying, yes, we've talked to our 2 artists and they would like you to know that they're greeting each other kindly. Please support them. Jason is supposed to be a K-pop idol in 2020. And I don't want to get too deep off in it, but let's just say the paparazzi pictures of Jonghyun and his girlfriend taken in the early days of SHINee almost ruined his life. And it was the beginning of K-pop really taking a toll on him. If paying your way out of it was an option, don't you think he would have fucking done it? Jessica, you know better. Jessica, you fucking know better. You fucking know better. And why you would write Jason like this, I have no fucking clue. I don't know how a guy that fucking clueless can make it in this industry. But then, what I didn't read is where Jason turns it around on Rachel and is like, hey, you're mad at me for lying to you, but you lied to me and set me up by having me sing a duet with you over at the cafe. Don't think I don't know what that was. And I say this because I want to be kindly. I love the fact that they acknowledge that Rachel was dead wrong for setting Jason up to be a part of her viral video and not clearing it with him ahead of time and then not addressing it afterwards. That was some bullshit. She should have done better. She really should have. But there's a big difference between what she did, which was we sang a song, somebody videotaped it, and it's just they caught us singing together. The photographs that were taken of you and I on this secret date have tarnished my complete reputation. Everything that anyone would have ever thought about me has been completely thrashed by these photographs. So now people feel like I'm a hoe. And there's nothing about us singing together at a cafe that makes you look like a hoe. But I do. Because that's how people feel about me. So, yeah, like, fuck out of here, Jason. He's just so fucking dumb. Can't even fathom the fact that maybe the people at DB, who he already knows are sexist and biased against the girl trainees, would ever lie to him. I mean, come on. He's got a dick. Why would they lie to him? Anyway, after that, Rachel is completely depressed and goes to the house of the two rich twins and totally forgot that that was supposed to be the night of the gala. But you know what good girlfriends do for each other? They do each other's hair and makeup and sit around in their ball gowns and drink liquor and laugh to shake off all the bad news in their lives. But apparently they don't return phone calls or text messages because on the way to the DB building before Rachel had her big blow up with Jason, Akari sent her a message saying, "Please call me. Call me as soon as you can." Rachel didn't call her because she heard those girls talking smack on the bus. Rachel didn't call her after she left Jason at the DB building in tears. Rachel didn't call her when she went to the twins to go get dolled up and have a drinking party and cry their tears away. Rachel didn't call her the next day when she woke up with a hangover at her house. Also, we find out that the dorky guy was actually in love with the other girl the whole time. He just didn't know how to give her the right attention. But that's neither here nor there. Who gives a fuck about them? So she's at her house about to fill out her college applications, and her mom comes in and is like, "Rachel, I just want you to know, my mom didn't support me when I played volleyball, and that's why I told myself after she died that I was going to support you, because I was angry at my mom for not being supportive of me, even though I wasn't good enough to be an Olympic volleyball player. But then when we moved to Korea, I wasn't supportive of you either, so I was just as bad as my mom. But that's going to change, because I saw you already being a K-pop star, and I figured, yeah, maybe she can actually do this. So I'm going to be all in it now, girl." And then Leah comes in and is like, "Sis, I love you. Your dreams are my dreams. I love everything that you do, and I'll support you no matter what. I don't care if I have friends. In fact, I'm going to become a DB trainee too, because my dreams are your dreams." Crystal, I'm so sorry. Crystal, I'm so sorry. This story makes you seem like you don't have no independent personality, and that fucking sucks. So Rachel, after having her family's encouragement, decides to go to the DB building where she seems to have, oh no, she gets a text message from Eugen and goes to the DB building where she has conveniently forgot that it's like rookie introduction day, so she doesn't think to show up for that. Anyway, gets to the DB building, talks to Eugen, and finds out from Eugen that Akari got transferred to a different K-pop label. She is no longer at DB. So first she overhears somebody else in the building talk about it. Then Eugen confirms that that's what happened. And Rachel then tries to call Akari, but Akari's number doesn't work no more. So are they given like DB phones? Is that the reason why her phone number doesn't work anymore and her line account doesn't work anymore? Because that shit should still work. I mean, I don't think that they transfer companies and all of a sudden you don't have access to social media anymore, or like just fucking basic phone privileges. Anyway, I digress. So she goes into the rookie new trainee greeting ceremony, and when she gets there, of course, sorry, I'm about to sneeze. Yoonji and Lizzie, who were the two random bitches from earlier in the novel, are like, "Look what the cat dragged in. What the fuck are you doing here, Rachel? Nobody wants you here." Meanwhile, Rachel does have a #1 song on the K-pop charts, yet and still. But yeah, they're like, "What are you doing here? I'm surprised you'd show your ugly face." And Mina's like, "Yeah, what are you doing here, Princess Rachel?" And Rachel stands next to me and is like, "I'm here because I deserve to be here. My mom just gave me an empowering speech and I plan to fight for my dream." So she stands in line, and then after that, everybody goes to sit in the audience. Oh, but before that, Mr. No, Mr. Lim, and Miss Shin all show up. These are DB executives. And when they show up, they're like, you know, kind of like, "Ooh, Rachel, I hope you understand this was just business. We didn't mean anything by it." Even though the one guy, Mr. Lim, seems to believe that Rachel is actually out here hoeing around. So I don't know what the fuck's wrong with him. He must be super sexist. But anyway, they're kind of like feeling her out to see if, you know, she's going to be able to brush this off or if she's going to like blow up at them about this, whatever the fuck's going to happen. But Rachel not drunk that day like she had been previously. She's like, no, I can laugh this off. I am a pro after all, and we're family. Sits in the audience, and as they're announcing shit, Jason comes over and is like, hey, Rachel, I just want to say congratulations. Congratulations on what? Then all of a sudden, Mr. No, and now I'm going to announce the members of our new girl group. Listen, Rachel is the one who figured out that DB were the people who had leaked the photographs to the paparazzi, but she's not Sherlock Holmes enough to figure out this bastard is telling her congratulations, and then all of a sudden Mr. No is on the stage announcing who's going to be in the new girl group. You don't get that? That just totally swung over your head there? Really? So, to no one's surprise, Rachel gets chosen to be in the new girl group. And it's her and Mina. They're the last two trainees that get introduced to the girl group. And Rachel's crying, and she's being congratulated by Mr. No, who still is kind of like, I own you now, bitch. And as everybody's kind of like talking or whatever, Mina's like, I just want you to know, I know your little secret. And if you do anything that pisses me off, I'm totally going to expose you. She has a video of Rachel and Jason kissing backstage at the fucking debut performance of the Summer Heat song. Which, didn't we talk about the fact that Jason should have been professional enough to understand that you can't be kissing people in the public stages? If Leah, Rachel's little sister, who's the one who captured the video, managed to see it with her cell phone camera, how many other people in the audience saw that shit too? And apparently Mina got the video from Leah, Rachel's sister, when she went over with her dad to offer Rachel's dad a job. Now remember how I was telling you earlier in this review that they had only been there long enough for the tea to be poured? Like they actually hadn't even been there long enough for them to drink the tea? How did Mina convince Leah to send her a video? How'd they have time to watch videos? How'd they even have enough time to talk that long? That's crazy. And Rachel even says, I told my sister enough about Mina for her to understand that Mina hates me. And if Leah is this super smart, really empathetic, loves her sister, supports her sister's dream, wouldn't her sister's enemies also be her enemies? Wouldn't she not even want to talk to this bitch, much less send her a video file? Anyway, of course, Rachel shook because she's like, oh my gosh, you've got blackmail stuff on me, whatever, fuck it. Anyway, so it's finally time to debut, and the two random bitches are in the group, and apparently people have been pulling pranks on Rachel, stealing her shoes, putting gum in her hair, all this other bullshit. But on camera, they're all smiles and group hugs and all this other stuff to make everybody think they're friendly and everything else. And they're having this interview, and Rachel all of a sudden is like perfect in interviews. And as they're having this interview, they go backstage, and Rachel notices something on Mina's wrist. So Mina is showing a video, and Rachel thinks that it's her kissing video. She's all scared. She finds out it's not. It's like some dog playing piano. But she dumps Mina's phone into a glass of water, which I don't think that's going to get rid of the video because most of us keep stuff like that in the cloud, but I digress. But she notices that Mina has a vintage Rolex on her wrist, which you'd think that the person that's managing costumes would say, that watch don't match your outfit, girl. You're going to have to wear something else. Have we heard somebody talk about a vintage Rolex before? Yes, Mr. Han wears a vintage Rolex. Mina's fucking Mr. Han. That's what's implied at the end of this thing. And after that, Rachel feels like I guess she's maybe freed herself from being under Mina's thrall and is confident because now she has blackmail material on Mina and she began her new phase as a K-pop star. Also, apparently, she believes that Jason signed some horrible deal in order to get her debuted with the group, which I have to say, that sounds like a lie. That sounds like an absolute and utter lie. I don't think that Jason had to do any special favors in order to get Rachel in the group. If anything, he made some stupid deal thinking he was taking care of her, and the executives just led him to believe that they were doing him a favor. But they were always going to pick Rachel for the group because if they weren't going to pick Rachel, they weren't going to pick Mina either. So How about that? Why wouldn't you debut a girl who had a #1 song on the K-pop charts? I told you a lot of story just now. Like, I didn't even pause for your comments, nothing. I just told a ton of story right now. All of this shit happens in the last 4 chapters. All of this plot wrap-up happens in the last 4 chapters. That's a really shitty way to build up your book. Books have arcs. They have acts. And that's just not the way you play that game. Yes, you definitely want to ramp up the tension towards the end, but you don't want to totally make it to where you have all of these threads open and then you just snap them shut in a quarter of the time. Out of 27 chapters, the last 4 chapters were the wrap-up. Also, just like, I think that she tried to make Rachel seem dumb and seem like she didn't have common sense when she's drinking tainted champagne from Mina, when she is kissing Jason in these public spaces, all this other stuff. But then they make her seem like she's so much smarter than Jason when they're having all of these other awkward and difficult conversations. And it's like, let's be consistent here. Granted, Jason might be the dumbest person on the planet, but Rachel has never really been that smart. Rachel's never really been that smart, so for her to be the one to figure out that DB is the one who leaked the photos to the paparazzi, that's crazy that she would be the one to figure that out and not him even begin to guess that at all. It's crazy that Rachel would be the one to be able to notice that that watch happened to belong to Mr. Han when she didn't seem to notice any other shit that was going on around her, like the fact that somebody gave her a glass of drugged champagne. It's just ridiculous to me that there's so much shit that Rachel figures out in these last couple of chapters that she couldn't figure out any time earlier in the story. Also, fuck you for what you did to Akari. Like, that is my biggest pain point with this last little set of chapters. Akari deserved 1,000 times better than what you gave her. And there's been nothing that Rachel has done that has made up for that huge oversight. Nothing. Rachel was a friend of Akari's and acted in no ways a friend to Akari. In no ways a friend to Akari. And the way... Exactly. Akari texts her talking about, can we talk? And the very next day her fucking number is changed. Her phone's cut off. Her Line account doesn't work anymore. Really? 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 Akari saved Rachel's career. Akari saved Rachel's career. And saved Rachel multiple times. Saved Rachel backstage, saved Rachel's career, tried to talk common sense to Rachel. If she had spent more time hanging out with Akari, half the shit that happened in this book would have never happened. If she had told Akari about her budding romance with Jason, Akari probably would have shook her right and got her on the right track. Akari was a great friend. And if that's supposed to be a shout out to a friend that you used to have, that you paid dust to, Jessica, you're a terrible fucking friend. I'll never want to be friends with you. Because Akari, she just deserved. Rachel should go to Akari's house. Rachel has to know where Akari lives. Akari knows where Rachel's dad was working, his boxing gym. Akari's probably been to Rachel's house before. Do you not know where your friend lives? Can Eugen at least pull up her address from the files and give it to you so you go see her in person and make up in person? Like, come on. It's not like Rachel has 1,000 friends. And she's only got one friend at DB. Akari was her only friend at DB. She wasn't friends with any other trainees. None of the other girls liked her. Not a single one. And probably for good reason. But the one girl who actually gave you the absolute time of day. The one girl who believed in you and helped scheme and plot with you to help you do better. That one girl, you don't have no time to reach out to. It is extremely frustrating. But like I said, the final chapter kind of sets itself up like this is book 1 of 2 books. And what I've heard is that if you get the Kindle version, it says that the sequel is called Bright. So this is Shine. The sequel is Bright. I will probably read Bright. I will probably read Bright. But I'll probably be asking for donations so I don't have to spend my own money on it. I'll probably try to buy it used if I can because I don't want to give Jessica any fresh money, honestly. I'm just highly disappointed. I'm highly disappointed, and I don't know how much of this she's going to be able to reconcile in coming books, but you've got to fire your ghostwriter and hire a new one. I'm just going to tell you right now. You have got to fire your current ghostwriter and find you a new one. And find you a ghostwriter who actually gives a fuck about K-pop. Find you a ghostwriter who actually has been watching K-pop news, has been following K-pop groups, who is up to date with current K-pop and can maybe give you a little advice on like what the current trends are. Something, anything. The name of the group that Rachel is in is called Girls Forever. Why are they called Girls Forever? Because you can't use Girls' Generation, but you got to throw girls in there somehow. So it's Girls Forever. And it is just, it's too on the nose, number one, but it is just so lacking in trying. So lacking in trying. What girl groups are debuting with girls like the names of the girl groups nowadays are so fucking bizarre as shit. She could have named that group R2D2 and it would have sounded more like what girl groups sound like nowadays. We just had aespa debut, but we had Twice, ITZY, Red Velvet, Weekly, Everglow. Like they've all got kind of bizarre ass names. So why would you name a girl group Girls Forever? Yeah, she totally did. She totally made it seem like every girl in Girls' Generation hated her. Wasn't a single nice one in the group, which is also really bizarre to me because I've seen it on Twitter before and I've seen it on like other platforms that Jessica still does hang out with a couple of other members from Girls' Generation, but they don't show themselves together. So like, I think it's the Y girls. I think it's Yuri and Yuna maybe that sometimes hang out with Jessica, and they'll take pictures and put them on their Instagram of them in certain spots, and then later on Jessica will put a picture on her Instagram of her in that same place, but they'll never do it at the same time. They'll do it like a week off of each other or something, and they're like, oh yeah, probably because they were there together, but they can't let anybody know they were there together. So there have been some photos from different Instagrams and stuff like that, but she still meets up secretly with members of Girls' Generation. So if you are actually still friends with anybody in Girls' Generation, I'm sure they're really excited to see the way that they're portrayed in your book. I bet they are super happy about that. But yeah, I can definitely see how this is a setup to excuse the fact that Rachel later on gets kicked out of DB or leaves DB, and they make it seem like, well, she was never sisters with them in the first place, and they've always been plotting to blow up her spot, and they never liked her to begin with, and she never had any friends, and you know, all of that. But I feel like I wasted so much time with this book. I really do. I feel like this book was a huge waste of time. The only thing that I like about this book is my opportunity to talk to you guys about this book. That is the redeeming factor of this book. But this book literally is fan fiction, and I've read better fan fiction before. This is fan fiction. It does not even have the literary weight to be considered a novel. This is a long fan fiction. Yeah, when I was reading those last chapters about the bullying and everything else, I was like, this sounds very much like the Tiara situation. This does not sound. This doesn't make me feel sympathetic to Rachel. This very much sounds like the setup from what happened with Tiara and their big bullying scandal. But I digress. But you guys let me know, like, what were some of your favorite moments from the book? What were some things that you liked about the book? Some things you hated about the book? What are some things that this book made you feel? I mean, outside of the huge sense of disappointment, I will say this. I appreciate that this book was not hard to read. That's nice. Like, I was able to get through the chapters pretty quickly. And I also appreciate that this book had a little bit of travel element to it, which you should in an idle book, but they did try to make it a point that any place that Rachel traveled, she brought up something about that place that was maybe unique to the area. Like when they went to Canada, they had Tim Hortons. When they went to New York, they talked about eating falafel instead of just like the New York hot dog thing. When they're in Korea, of course, they're eating Korean food. When they go to Tokyo, they have not Tokyo food, Japanese food, but they eat it at like a themed cafe. So it really is kind of Tokyo food because it's not traditional Japanese food. It's the kind of food you find in a place like Tokyo. So Tokyo food is actually pretty accurate. But I did appreciate that along with the traveling, she made it a point to try to bring up things about every place that they went to. Even on Jeju Island, they talked about eating the Jeju oranges, which is specific to the island. And they talked about the seafood diver ladies, so that was cool. But yeah, I would have liked to have seen Akari just not end up like that. That would have been really cool. And also, like, the twins, I still don't get why the twins are friends with Rachel. Like, the twins are so kind to Rachel, and I don't know what they get out of it. I really, really don't. Like, the twins buy Rachel clothes, and they set up secret dates for her and her boyfriend, and they defend her when the other kids at school are like, she's just trainee trash. Like, they really are there for her. And I want to figure out why. I'm more interested in Akari's story as a Japanese female trainee. Me too. Me too. Like, I would love to read the Akari book. Jessica, if you could hire somebody to ghostwrite the Akari book, that would be amazing to read because Akari's got so much going against her, and I think that it really does reflect what's going on with K-pop right now. It's a more modern story than this is. So instead of making some guy the focus, let's talk about, a girl who's away from home and who's trying to debut as a trainee in a country where people don't really like the people from your country. And that once you debut, you're going to have to deal with netizens totally shooting you down and calling you names and not liking you. Like, if I was going to do a part two, let's just go ahead and do our fantasy draft of what we would want if we were going to write book 2 of this, because I don't think that Jessica's done ghostwriting it yet, so let's just offer some things. I want Akari to turn into Hyuna. Let me explain that. So, if you guys recall, Hyuna debuted with the Wonder Girls, but then she took sick and had to take like a year off, and then ended up going to Cube as a trainee and debuting at Cube with 4 Minute. And then she was like the star for a minute, basically, and ended up being the one that Cube kept when they decided to dissolve the group. And then she ended up leaving Cube to go on to P Nation. And so if I was going to write a Akari story, I would love to see her kind of morph into that Hyuna style character. I would love to see after Rachel debuts and gets so caught up in trying to debut and trying to stave off all these pranks and ill wishes from the other girls in her girl group, that about a year after she's been debuted, she runs across someone backstage, and the person she runs across backstage is Akari with her debut stage, with her brand new group, and when her and Rachel see each other backstage, Akari's like, I've really wanted to talk to you for a really long time, and I've been thinking about what I would say to you the next time I saw you. But right now, I've got a show to perform. And then just turns around and fucking walks away from Rachel. Doesn't say shit else. Basically like, I have so much I wanted to say to you for so long, but right now, I'm fucking busy, bitch, just like you were a year ago. Like, I would love to see that. I would love to see that. And I'd love to see Rachel struggling in her group because people don't like her. The public doesn't like her. I don't want it to be about that hoe shit, but I do want it to be about Rachel's plastic surgery. I want character growth for Mina. What was the point of including a sad family backstory for her if she's always just an evil villain? I agree. I feel like they tried to make Mina sympathetic and then they made her jump to like the wildest of conclusions, and that didn't have to happen. I feel like the way that Rachel and Mina are going to come together in the next book is that they're going to be aiding each other as they go on secret dates. That are like, something's going to happen where Mina's going to get caught out there and Rachel's going to have to save her, and Mina's going to be like, why did you save me? I've been nothing but awful to you. I don't deserve your kindness, Rachel. And Rachel's going to be like, Mina, all I've ever wanted to do was just be decent to each other. You thought I sabotaged you back in Canada, but I never did. That was a legitimate, complete accident. And all this time, I never hated you, Mina. I just didn't understand why you hated me. Let's start over, girlfriend. I feel like that's what's going to happen. Yeah, I think she does try to make Mina seem irredeemable, but the problem is, you're sleeping with a record exec. Jessica, how are we supposed to feel like Mina is irredeemable for sleeping with a record executive when you are literally sleeping with the executive at Cordial, which is the record company you currently are signed to? That doesn't make no sense. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. How does that seem bad? Is it because Mina's underage? Is that what's going on? I mean, I don't really know how old Mina is. I'm assuming that her and Rachel are both around 17. But, like, Rachel drinks in the story, and it's no problem. So maybe Rachel's 18. If Mina's also 18, then her fucking around with an exec, it doesn't bother me. Because everybody mentioned how Mr. Hahn is, like, a lot younger than anyone else on the executive board. So I'm going to assume that Mr. Hahn might be, let's go with 25. If he's 25 and she's 18, she comes from a super wealthy family, he comes from money, they have a lot more in common than your average couple of folks out on the street. So if they wanted to date, it actually sounds more organic for Mina and Mr. Hahn to date than for Mina to date another idol. Because another idol means nothing to her. She grew up with her father giving her access to all the wealthiest people. So she could have dated idols, actors, anybody she wanted to this whole time because her dad is a fucking multimillionaire. But Mr. Hahn grew up as a multimillionaire too. And he probably has a lot more in common with Mina. So them falling into a relationship with each other makes a ton more sense than her trying to go after Jason or anybody else. Like, that actually legitimately seems right. But then that begs the question. I want to say it was chapter 3 or chapter 4. The chapter where we're introduced to Jason. They're at that trainee house party. And Mina acts like she wants to date Jason. When Jason comes around, she's like, ooh, were you looking for me? Ooh. If she was dating Mr. Hahn this whole time, why the fuck would she care about Jason? It wouldn't matter to her at all. And she wouldn't even be doing that for appearances because it's not like she can date anybody on the label. So that's crazy to me. It doesn't make any sense. I think it was implied that they slept with him for a spot on the girl group, wasn't it? So that's what made her irredeemable. No, I don't feel like that was implied at all. To me, it never seemed implied that she slept with Mr. Hahn in order to get in the girl group, and I'll tell you why. Her dad is Mr. Chu. If he didn't want her in that girl group, she wasn't going to get in. If he wanted her in that girl group, she was going to get in. Because Mr. Chu, according to Kang Jin-ah, is the one who actually pulls the strings behind the scenes. So she didn't have to sleep with anybody to get into this girl group. She may have had to fight in order to not seem like she got into the girl group because of nepotism. But in terms of whether or not she deserved to be there and needed somebody to help her get into the group, when your dad is the one who's telling the CEO what to do, you ain't got to ask for nobody's help. So I really legitimately think that Mina and Mr. Han are together because they want to be together. However, I also feel irritated by the fact that Mr. Han, if he knew that his girlfriend had a performance in another part of Canada and they were leaving the hotel and he knew that his girlfriend and her friend were getting in the car with Jason, why didn't he grab his girlfriend's costume? Like, it would have been more believable if Mr. Han was like, well, I grabbed Mina's costume because it was ready first, but no, I didn't get Rachel's costume. It would make more sense for Mr. Han to sabotage Rachel in favor of Mina than to let both of them get sabotaged in Canada. You know what I'm saying? Like, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So Sky Sapphire says, from Rachel's point of view, it seems obviously it's obviously gonna be seen as irredeemable. Maybe. I feel like Rachel wouldn't feel that way either because Mina's dad is employing her dad. Like, Rachel understands Mr. Chu has a lot of power, so if Rachel sees the situation even close to what me, an outsider, sees it as, she's not going to see Mina dating Mr. Han as her getting a leg up because she knows that her dad fucking runs everything. The only thing that Rachel's going to think about is that, like, your boyfriend told you information that the rest of us didn't have access to, so maybe that's a leg up. But in terms of being able to make decisions about your career, your boyfriend can't do that because Mr. Han couldn't even make the other shareholders keep Rachel. He was able to influence them by getting them to watch the performance and talking about what a good idea it was, but he didn't have the clout to walk into a room and say, we're keeping Rachel, fuck what you heard. He didn't have that kind of pull. So it doesn't make any sense to me for Rachel to look at it as like, oh, Mina got a leg up because she's dating Mr. Han. No, I don't see it. But yeah, something's going to happen to Mina that Rachel's going to have to save Mina, and then all of a sudden her and Mina are going to become allies and this, that, and the other. I feel like that's what's going to happen. Like, maybe Mr. Han is going to turn out to be an asshole, and Rachel's going to get a picture of Mr. Han coming out of, like, Lizzie's hotel room while they're on tour, and she's going to show it to Mina, and Mina's going to be like, you lied, you set this up, this would have never happened, Lizzie's actually my friend. And she's like, Mina, you should know better. None of us have any friends up here. You know what they say, it's lonely at the top. Some shit like that. Like, I feel like something like that is going to happen. I think that one thing that would be very interesting is to bring some other points of view, some other romantic points of view into it. I think that, you know, she should talk about two trainees who seem to be stuck at the hip to each other, and it turns out because they are dating each other, but they have to be really careful because the only thing worse than a boyfriend rumor is having a lesbian rumor. So that would be something you could bring in, unless you're homophobic, in which case don't even dive into those waters because you'll screw it up. I'm not saying that you are homophobic, just saying if you are, just leave that shit alone. Maybe somebody talking about what it's like to be in the K-pop world and expected to be like uber sexual while you're still a very young woman, and grappling with the fact that maybe you're ace and this facade you have to put on is nothing like how you are personally. Maybe talk about what it's like to lose a family member when you're an idol and you can't even get home and grieve with your family the way you want to. Or maybe like Kang Jin-ah, like, let's find out what happens with the rest of her story. Like, she was a very interesting character because she represented kind of the worst case scenario. But after she left DB, she claims that they made her unemployable. So let's figure out what happened to her. Does she pull a Hyolyn and she decides to start her own company and try to support herself, and we see her struggling, and then after a long hard journey to try to claw her way back to the top where she used to be, she just gives up on life and decides to end it all? I mean, I don't think that Jessica would go that far, but I also feel like her ghostwriter would. Or maybe Kang Jin-ah pulls a Jessica. Maybe Kang Jin-ah, after everything goes wrong and nobody will employ her and she's running out of money and her boyfriend left her behind, she decides to write a tell-all K-drama. Not even a fucking buck. She decides to ghostwrite a K-drama, and she hires the best actors in Korea, and they're like, it's a drama based on the life of idolhood, written by a secret insider, and nobody talks about who wrote it. But Rachel recognizes the storyline for what it really is. It's the story of everything going on at DB. She has the money for that. She didn't have to have the money. Here's where you do it. So obviously, Kang Jin-ah, being one of the most popular idols in Korea, she has a lot of friends in the industry. Industry people hang out with each other because it's really the only people that kind of understand their life. So they feel like these are people I can like kind of let down my hair on, right? So Kang Jin-ah is somehow friends adjacent to a famous screenwriter. Let's just say it's the screenwriter who wrote Goblin, because we're pulling one out of our ass, right? So she's friends with an industry insider. She's like, girl, I've been struggling. Nobody wants to hire me. They won't let me on TV anymore. I don't know what to fucking do. And it's terrible because if people knew the stuff that I knew, they would hire me in an instant. And she's like, this sounds like the plot to a story. I'd love to write it for you. So she starts feeding information to the lady who screenwrites these like amazing K-dramas. And because her K-dramas have always been successful one after the other, she gets her story optioned to be produced without them actually knowing what the storyline was going to be about. And so as the show is going on, people are like, this doesn't feel like your typical behind the scenes of idolhood type of drama. This shit feels and sounds very real. Who's feeding them this information? And then all of a sudden people are able to like tie strings together and be like, oh my gosh, this sounds like the story of Electric Flower. Oh my gosh, this sounds like the story of, you know, Jason from Next Boys, or the guy, the Q-Min, whatever, some shit like that. Like, that would be amazing. And then all of a sudden, everybody's spot is blown, except for Rachel, because Kang Jin-ah felt bad for Rachel, because in the couple of times she ever saw Rachel, she felt like a kindred spirit and felt the need to protect her. But she goes ahead and she writes this K-drama, and it's about to unravel the whole thing. And one of the biggest secrets is that Mina's dad, Mr. Cho, got a trainee pregnant, and the trainee he got pregnant is Suzy Choi, who was the girl that was mentioned at the very beginning of the book. Her name has got to come back up, and we realize the reason why she quit being a trainee was not because she wanted to quit being a trainee, but because Mr. Choi had sexually assaulted her, and she had to get out of the trainee business because she had his baby. I know this. I'm going totally salacious, but you know what? If you're gonna write it like a fucking fanfic, let's just get out here and let's just totally go fucking buck wild. Let's just go ahead and tell every single story. We could talk about how other trainees who like didn't make it had to resort into fucking prostitution. We could do the Gina story and put that there, where you think you're just meeting a guy who's going to sponsor you while you're waiting for your next project, and then after you've had sex with him a couple of times, he stops answering his phone. So then you get introduced to another sponsor, and it happens a second time, and then all of a sudden you realize this is not a coincidence, this is a cycle. I'm being pimped out. So yeah, I think that this shit could work. This could absolutely work. But I want to see, if we're gonna go full on soap opera, we need to go full on soap opera. Jason has a successful debut, but the songs don't do that well. I think that'd be good. I think Jason having a successful debut, but then the song's not doing well afterwards because people can't tie it back to his real life, or maybe the shit he's doing is like ballad stuff and it's nothing like he did with Next Boys, so people aren't really feeling it. Or we could have Jason involved in a scandal. So Jason is the golden boy, his songs are doing good, and then he's still like very emotional and depressed about his relationship with Mina breaking up. So he goes out to drink one night with his friends and wants to drive home to clear his head, and gets caught up in a DUI. And the DUI causes him to be shamed by the public, and no one wants to talk to him. And so he decides to try his fortunes in America. And he's like, I'm going to give up on Korean music because the Korean music industry has done me dirty. So he goes to the West, and that's where he decides to be. He totally removes himself from the situation, and also DB is not able to enforce their contract because, yada, 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 so on and so on and so forth. Um, Jay says he wants the sequel to be about Leah being in the company after Rachel leaves. I mean, I don't really care for what Leah does. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't have a problem with Leah's character. It's just that they didn't do anything with her character to make her seem like she would have a journey worth following. They really made her the tag-along little sister. So I don't really care what happens to her after this, to be quite honest with you, because they didn't write that up. I'd be more interested in hearing about what happens to Yuvin. You know, she has this mom who's a freaking K-pop legend, but she doesn't try to be a K-pop idol. She just decides to work at a company. I'd like to see Yujin. Oh, okay. This is the only story I want to hear about Leah. Yujin is a crazy popular trainer over at DB, right? There's this show that comes on TV called Seduce, and 150 trainees are on this show where their mission is to seduce the public into voting for them so they can debut as the next big K-pop trainee. And Leah goes on this show because her sister Rachel said, you are not allowed to be a trainee at DB Entertainment. So she has to go on Seduce and can't tell anybody who she's related to. And Yujin doesn't recognize Leah because she never really talked to Leah like that. And Yujin's like, there's something about that girl that just really strikes my eye. And then all of a sudden, right before the finale, it's announced, oh my gosh, Rachel is the sister of this girl on Seduce that everybody is calling the number one person. And oh my gosh, was the show rigged because her sister was an idol? Like, I could totally go for that. I could totally go for that. In fact, doing a K-pop novel about like a produced style situation is actually the ideal setting to write a novel for, because you have this huge cast of characters who nobody owes anything to, but they're all in this crazy situation where all this weird shit happens. They're also under like 24-hour surveillance because of the teams that are filming everything for content purposes. They have dramas with final performances. Like, yeah, write the book. I want to see what happens on Seduce. I want to watch Seduce. I would. Not produce, seduce. Seduce. Hey. Give me the vibes. But anyway, I think I've exhausted every kind of novel idea I have. And I'm not a creative, so if you're expecting something that no one has ever seen before, that's not me, obviously. I'm not that person. I dwell in the creepy, I dwell in the overdone, I dwell in the tropey. So I can't offer you anything that hasn't already been done before. But I still feel like any of the options I've offered might be better than what's possibly going to end up in Bright. We'll see. We'll see. But to that end, thank you guys for joining me on this journey. Thank you for tonight. Oh my gosh, I finished like 9 chapters in one evening, and you guys like hung out with me as I did video after video after video. Thank you, Anthony, for being here. Thank you, Sarah, for being here. Thank you, Lix Bricks. I'm sure I'm missing a whole bunch of names. Sky Sapphire. I'm missing a bunch of names, but thank you guys for following me throughout the evening. Alondra, I see you. And just, being here with me while I go through this trauma, because I really feel like I've been wounded, Jessica. I expected more from you. Hi, whatever. But yeah, thank you for joining me for this. This has been a time, and here's looking forward to new books. Hopefully more ex-idols decide to write stuff. I feel like one day Amber's going to put pen to paper and she's really going to tell it all. But until that time comes, we'll be out here waiting and hoping to see something new and inventive. So again, thank you for joining me with this, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.